Good morning. It's Tuesday, June 24th, 2014. This is Tech Talk Today, episode 14, and my name is Chris. Big show. Well, in the content sense today. I try to keep these daily shows a little tight for you, short. But it's Google Week, you guys. Google I.O. is tomorrow. We will be covering it live. It is at 9 a.m. right when our show goes on the air, so join us at jblive.tv for live coverage of Google I.O. 2014. And we'll go for a bit. I don't know if we're going to do a long show. We could go for the whole time, or we might just go for the relevant bits and then bail and then do like a summary the next Thursday, on Thursday's episode. Anyways, we'll play it by ear, but I'd love to have you join us live, and you can hang out in our Mumble Room too and give your commentary on the keynote as it goes. Today, this is like I.O. Eve today, and it turns out, surprise, surprise, a lot of our news is very Google heavy. But it all has an overriding theme to me, which I think spells huge Google I.O. this year. So let's start with a story that Google could have easily held back for Google I.O. and made a huge splash during their keynote. Google has announced it is beginning private testing of a domain name registration service called Google Domains. That's right. They're getting into the domain name and DNS management business. They're going to set up make email forwarding simple, they say. They're going to offer free private registration, so you don't have to pay extra for that, they say. They've also talked about maybe pairing it with Google services like Gmail, so that way you can set up a private domain and have it connected to your Gmail account and make all of that happen really easily. It's an interesting story, and when it launches to the public, you'll be able to buy and sell domains through Google's service. I don't know if it's going to be like it's not clear if it's like an auction service or how that functionality is going to work. But if you own a domain, you will be able to sell it to other users. And unlike other domain name registrar offerings, Google won't charge for that private registration. You'll be able to create up to 100 email addresses on the domain and as many as 100 customized subdomains. Google Domains will also use the company's own DNS servers, which you're probably pretty familiar with, so visitors can get snappy response times when they hit up your site. And when asked, why are you getting into the domain registration business? Well, Google said our small business-facing division decided to build this product because according to their research, 55% of small businesses still don't have a website. Blaster, I don't know if you got your mic on, but I want to ask you a question because I know you've worked in IT for a long time. So I think you probably will share my opinion that when you buy a domain, one of the number one things you need to make sure is the company you're buying that is going to be in that business for 5, 10 years, however long you have that domain. Now, we have seen Google launch projects, and we have seen Google shut things down that you never would have thought they would shut down. And when I hear Google's small business division, their division thought this up, not the whole of Google, not Google as a company, not Google as an institution got behind this idea, but one division inside Google came up with an idea because, well, heck, 55% of small businesses still don't have a website. Well, that sounds like a great reason, but does that mean Google's actually committed? Blaster, do you trust Google to get into this business?
I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. I'm a little bit skeptical. I know I'm playing the Matt card here, but
What about you, Egg? What do you think? Are you skeptical, or do you think Google's the right company to do this?
Okay, yeah, I don't know if I would call it skeptical, but I am just curious. Is this just, could they be finally the first people to compete with GoDaddy on this?
Are they going to put Namecheap out of business? Are folks like Hover, Hover, who specializes in a different type of domain, system where they have a real clean UI and straightforward approach? That seems like the exact kind of space that Google's going to be competing. I think if anybody's okay, it's probably going to be GoDaddy because they're so large. It's probably the smaller domain name companies.
Well, GoDaddy is the biggest as we know it right now, and to have Google come in and start offering domain registrations, are they saying for free? Did I miss that part? Or
no, it's going to be for around at cost. There's going to be a cost associated, but you think about I mean, in some ways to me, this seems like something that I'm almost surprised it's been this long since Google announced it. And looking back, they've been nurturing Google DNS for a long time, and you wonder if this has been part of that strategy. They offer a very robust Google Apps for your business service, which is really getting big, and having It's always been the missing part of that. Like when you go to set up your spam filtering for your domain name, like you have to go follow all these tutorials to set all that up properly, especially if you want to use a third-party service with your Google Apps account. So now Google's going to have all of that in-house and have it all just be click, click, click. Like it makes sense to me, even just from an Google Apps for your business standpoint. But if you wanted to start making like Google Plus pages more of a destination for businesses, and if you wanted to give people more control over their Gmail account, I mean, it makes a ton of sense, and DNS is so critical to the internet, and Google's business is so dependent on the internet, it almost seems like a foregone conclusion that at some point they were probably going to do this. At the same time, I'm not so sure I want Google running DNS, running fiber, running a huge portion of the internet's infrastructure, running all of search, owning all of advertising on the web, getting into social, completely dominating mobile, and now running the name resolution service. Okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking. And additionally, I was also thinking, where was this? 6 years ago when I first registered my domain. Would, because the first thing I did is get it with my Google Apps so I could have my email with the Gmail.
Yep.
But the thing is that it would have been super easy at the time, and I wouldn't have had gone through all the hoops that I did at the time. But at the same time, it's like, do we really want Google to own the internet? And
you look at the scale that Google operates at, they probably already manage their own DNS infrastructure fully. So they probably already have a robust system in place that just needed a really nice UI lacquer on top of it, and maybe some additional features. So I think if anybody can do this probably fairly robustly and get into this market new at this point, it is Google. Like, I don't think another company really could have come along at this point in time and offered something totally different. It's really going to be interesting, and I'd be willing to check it out.
No, like Blackout 24 just put in there. I was about to mention that they already have a public DNS that you use.
Yep. 8.8.8 and et cetera, which has had some issues in the past, but has mostly been overall a pretty good service. And again, it's another bit of data. That means every website you look up, Google theoretically logs, and if they already have your IP address when you log into your Gmail account, then they are able to tie your DNS queries to your Google ID, and they know not just the Google services you go to, but they know every website you go to, private browsing or not.
And then they target their ads based on your browsing.
Or they just establish a personality profile. Boy, this guy really likes this type of porn. Hey-o. All right, well, this next story is kind of Google-related in the sense that Google has bought Nest. You guys are familiar with Nest, the thermostat that is from Nest Labs. A couple of Apple former guys founded it. One of the guys was one of the guys that designed the iPod, right? So everybody knows about Nest. They got the smoke detector. You all know about Nest.
I heard it sucks, but okay.
Ouch. Wow, Judge. Yeah, I haven't tried it. It's not really kind of something that is quite up my alley. I kind of like some aspects of it. Guess what, though? It's been rooted. It turns out a group called GTV Hackers has been talking about this. They actually first discovered this back in November of 2013, and they actually did mention it publicly via Twitter on December 5th, 2013, but it didn't get a lot of attention. And now they've been sitting on it, but with a couple of conferences coming up, and they got declined. I'll get into that a little more. They decided to share the information about it. So today, the Google TV hacking site GTV Hacker announces it has hacked the device to enable the booting of unsigned code. If you own a Nest, hackers could have a backdoor into your home, essentially. By leveraging the device's DFU mode, it can boot unsigned code at the bootloader level. So let's unpack that. That probably means you're going to have local access. In fact, it does mean that. But here's why it's kind of a problem. It's because it actually turns out to be a pretty simple hack. They use the device's recovery mode to just run their own modified bootloader. Then they load another bootloader to start up a Linux kernel on the Nest. Then that Linux kernel it comes with a userland and a modified file system that writes to the Nest's file system. They then add an SSH server that runs as root, and they create a reverse SSH tunnel to a specified host using the Nest's virtual drive. They will be speaking at DEF CON 22. Their talk is going to be entitled "Hack All the Things: 20 Devices in 45 Minutes." It will feature unreleased exploits for 20 devices being released in 45 minutes, including, rumor has to be, the Dropcam that Google just bought. So if you're a Nest user, you probably don't have to panic. It seems the hacker would need physical access to the device Then it's just a matter of, getting access to the USB port, loading on this image, and they're done. A devious person could exploit it while in your home, I suppose, and then control it remotely later on. It'd be a pretty good prank. I mean, I could see me doing it to a friend.
Why is it so cold in here?
Yeah, exactly, right? Especially like if they have AC. If you're watching the video feed, here's the diagram of the attack. So it's really simple. You boot it into recovery mode. The Achilles heel here in recovery mode is that it does no signature verification on any images that it boots while in recovery mode. Since there's no signature verification, any image you put in there, it will boot if it's capable of booting on a Nest. So they set up that little image. They boot into that. It writes to the Nest file system, starts the SSH server, and Bob's your uncle. You have access to the Nest, a little Linux box on somebody's wall. I think this thing, has a motion sensor? I'm not sure about a microphone. But it gives you an idea, like, here we are on the eve of Google I.O., and you know the Internet of Things, and you know that home automation is going to be a big part of Google I.O., and in some ways, I'm looking forward to it. But we have to be realistic about the downsides. You now have a computer running your home thermostat that has the ability to sense where you're at in the house and apparently run SSH servers.
It's one of those things where if you have the more devices you have connected to the internet, the more problematic it can get because that's the more holes you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if you could execute some code on the smoke detector that will overheat the hardware to the point where it catches fire, so you burn someone's house with a smoke detector.
While we're on the Nest track, why don't we one more little kind of related story? And guys, I think if we're hearing about some of this stuff before I.O. is going to be huge this year. I mean, Google DNS, I can't believe they announced that before the thing. So last Friday, Nest moved to broaden its reach in home by buying a fast-growing maker of home-connected video cameras. You guys are probably familiar with them. It's Dropcam. It's kind of neat. It's like it's a webcam, pretty good resolution with a microphone. It's hooked up to a cloud, quote-unquote, DVR. When it senses motion, it automatically marks the spot in the timeline, so you can go back, log into their site, and see the motion event, hear the audio if you have the right Dropcam. It's HD. So Nest is buying up Dropcam, which is Nest obviously is owned by Google, and Nest also signed a deal with Whirlpool. They've worked together for more than a year to develop a few applications. One allows Whirlpool clothes dryer and Nest thermostats to work together to conserve energy and save money, they say. The thermostat detects a local utility's peak load times, when electricity is the most expensive for you and the utility. It sends a signal to the dryer to run cooler or slower during those times. So it doesn't necessarily not run, it just maybe runs it a little more efficiently. Jawbone, you guys are probably familiar with the Jawbone Bluetooth accessory manufacturer. They make other things as well. They're working on an activity monitoring wristband that detects when a person gets up on a winter morning out of bed, and it sends a message down to the Nest thermostat telling it to, okay, time to warm up the house. This is what they call Nest's Internet of Things strategy. It's being backed by a Thoughtful Things Fund, which is the venture capital fund created by Google Ventures and Kleiner Perkins. So it's all Google money at the end of the day that's funding all of this stuff, even if it's through Nest. Like the purchase of Dropcam was through Nest, but the money came from Google Ventures. And Nest is owned by Google. So it's a Google thing, right? It's kind of interesting how they're kind of doing a shuffling of the cards and of the cups, but Google's huge into this. And, of course, they've got Android that can tie it all together. That's going to be interesting to see. We'll know tomorrow because we'll be covering it live. Guys, any thoughts on any of the Nest stuff, like the thermostat stuff or the wristband that monitors your activity and then turns on the heat? Was that something maybe, like I think about like having kids, right? Maybe it'd be nice if the thermostat would turn on when my kids wake up so that way they weren't freezing their butts off until Dad got up.
I was thinking that, but I was also thinking, what happens if somebody hacks my dryer and some of my clothes don't dry?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, we can go worst case, and I think we often do, but I'm trying to also consider it from the standpoint of, well, how can this make my life better? Because we are all very busy, and technology does offer us the opportunity to make our lives a little more efficient. And I think it is maybe wise to take those efficiencies when we can, because like I know I'm kind of I kind of say this all the time, but we truly are just hairless monkeys that have just evolved into this crazy world that we have created for ourselves. And it might just be a little more than our gray matter is really meant to handle. Why not have technology help augment our capabilities? And if I could, for example, pull into the driveway here at the JB1 Studios and the doors automatically unlock and the studio lights turn on for me, that would be, that would shave 10 minutes off my morning or 5 minutes off my morning or whatever it is.
Oh, totally.
Or maybe when I arrive, the coffee maker turns on because, the Bluetooth in my phone talks to the Bluetooth in the coffee maker, and it says, okay, Chris is within proximity, so let's begin the brewing process. You could also say somebody could hack my coffee maker and make it run all night and maybe burn my house down. But that's the worst case scenario.
Well, I was thinking back to probably about 15 years ago. Me and my mentor, we had wired his house while it was being built. It was a manufactured home, completely with Cat 5 for the purpose of home automation.
No, that's cool.
At the time, he had Cat 5 in every room, and also Cat 5 wired up to a LCD control panel where you could just do everything for one control panel for the entire house. I mean, that was the early days. This is more like everything does it automatically without you even thinking about it. So
yeah, Slips,
it would be cool.
Slips, are you ready to pre-order like the next Nest thermostat? Are you going to get your house hooked up?
I'm not sure about that product itself,
yeah,
but I am very interested in home automation and specifically using Raspberry Pis to do stuff.
Right.
You can do quite a lot with them. They're pretty awesome little endpoints for your light switches and all that stuff. There's a lot of cool projects I saw on YouTube even of a guy using Node.js to subscribe individual light switches or your like lights, appliances or whatever to the light switch. So the light switch can control anything that you want to subscribe to it. It was really cool. And I can't wait until I can set up my phone on Tasker to alert the system that I'm home and turn the light on, and depending on what time of day, which lights to turn on, etc. It's going to be awesome.
Lionhead, what do you think? Is having the heating system know when I'm there and not there, is that a good way to save money, or is that just, overthinking it?
Well, it could be, at least if you have electric heating like Norway usually has. Having the AC start 10 minutes before I get home, it would just save me a lot of noise because I have an indoor one.
Well, and grief. It's like it'd be comfortable when you get home. Yeah. I that's why it is, I think, sometimes, especially those of us who are aware of the potential for abuse, that's immediately where we go to. And I also think it's extremely important to stay vigilant, especially when it's a large company like Google who's got a lot of different motivating factors for getting into that particular business. I think it's extremely healthy to stay skeptical there. At the same time, I also think it's healthy to remind ourselves there are advantages, and we all did watch sci-fi, for all of our lives thinking, God, wouldn't it be great? And now we're kind of starting to get there, and we're starting to actually see it materialize, and it's a little freakier than we thought it would be. But we've got to remember sometimes we have to travel boldly ahead like no one has before. Wait, no, what if something about new lives and new civilizations? Yeah, I don't know. Hey, before we wrap up, a couple of notes. I wanted to mention we'll have a link in the show notes on how you can watch the Google I.O. keynote live if you don't want to watch our coverage of it, because, we'll be cracking away as the keynote goes. We'll have links to that in the show notes as well. And last but not least, we could really use your support over at patreon.com/today. We only picked up one more patron since yesterday, which is not, that happens sometimes. But boy, I tell you, one of the things we really are at a point right now is we need additional help. And even if that's just contractors, I've come to the realization, as I have been every day now, fighting technical issues before a show starts, which really sucks for me, because not only is that just stressful and turns out to be expensive, but also it means I'm not focusing on the show content. I'm focusing on resolving an outage and making things work as fast as possible so that way I can get on air and do a show, but I'm not thinking about the actual show. And I realize as Jupiter Broadcasting has grown, our technology infrastructure has really grown. And it probably just needs somebody who could come in a couple of times a week and keep things working and running. Like an IT contractor who is not only proficient in IT, but also proficient in broadcast. That's something that is unique, and that's something you have to pay for. But that's an example. If we can get our funding up, that's something I could do that while isn't directly an investment into in one particular show, is an investment into making all of the shows better, making things run smoother, making our lives easier here at the studio, and letting us focus on the content. And those are the kinds of things that we're trying to be able to fund by having this platform of audience-contributed funding to our entire network. Patreon.com/today is how you contribute to the Jupiter Broadcasting Network, and we could use your support because that's just one example of 100 of a position that we're in that we need your support to be able to get to the next level, to move through these growing pains and reach that next plateau. So please help us out, patreon.com/today. Not only does it keep the show on the air, we celebrate the milestones in the show. A lot of times, folks like to just kind of go by the pledge levels because that sort of gives you an idea of what your contribution will be going towards. And we do still have slots available in the swag slot. I think the first batch has been ordered, but there'll be a future batch, and you can get in on that by becoming a Tech Talk Today patron. So thanks very much, everybody, for going over to patreon.com/today and supporting the show. And last but not least, you can also participate in the show by joining us live and hanging out in our mumble room, jblive.tv, Monday through Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. If you can't make it, I know, you're probably a busy person, but you can always email us today at jupiterbroadcasting.com or participate in the subreddit. This is great because I get a temperature on the type of topics you guys are interested in. It also helps surface helpful community members. And you can look over there right now, like Josh Strobel submitted a story about Overstock CEO complaining about sloppy code in Bitcoin. That's a great story. Josh also submitted one about Firefox's new HTML5 app development environment that I'm going to take a look at in the future. Bear's in there, Corky's in there, Astro Boy's in there, Unix 8 is in there. Everybody's in there helping make this a better show, helping me make the choices of content that I could, my content selection even superior, even stronger. That it helps vet the stories, it helps give me an idea of what you want to see, and your comments even help provide insights and make it a better show. So techtalktoday.reddit.com, that's another way to participate live, the feedback, and of course, that Patreon page. So thank you everyone so much for your various ways of support. It's been great, and I really would love to see you tomorrow for the Google I.O. keynote. I think it's going to be a very big show. I think we got to see what Apple has to offer, and I think this is potentially, we'll see. I don't know if it's going to be skydiving out of a plane introducing Google Glass big, but I think it's going to be huge, and we'll cover it live tomorrow morning. And even if you can't join us live, you can tune in and get our insights and thoughts on the best bits from the keynote. So we'll make it available as a download, of course, as always. Now, before we get out of here, before we run, I thought let's play a commercial. Now, this morning, I was grabbing a box of Kix for the kids, and I thought, all right, we're going to do some Kix cereal today. And I looked back at this, and I thought, this has been a brand that has been around for so long. And something that I don't know if people actually appreciate is that one cereal brand, like Kellogg's or whoever it was, I don't know, some of the other, there's GNC or whatever it is, or GM. General Mills. Yeah. There's lots of different, there's another one,
Quaker.
They would, just one of those brands alone would keep an old classic television show on the air. They would be like the sole sponsor of that show. So like The Adventures of Superman was like it was like Kellogg's or Post was the sole sponsor of that entire show. Well, Rice Krispies was also one of those types of sponsors, the people who make Rice Krispies. And so they had an advertisement that was just targeted right for kids. And I remember seeing a lot of old cereal commercials, but none quite like this. So we'll end with a Rice Krispies commercial today. See you tomorrow, everybody.
Snap, what a happy sound. Snap is the happiest sound I've found. You may clap, rap, tap, slap, but snap makes the world go round. Snap, crackle, pop, Rice Krispies. I say it's crackle, the crispy sound. You gotta have crackle or the clock's not wound. Geese cackle, feathers tickle, bells buckle, beats pickle, but crackle makes the world go round. Snap, crackle, pop, Rice Krispies. I insist that pop's the sound. The best is missed unless pop's around. You can't stop hopping when the cereal's popping. Pop makes the world go round. Snap, crackle, pop, Rice Krispies. Let's go for Kellogg's Rice Krispies. Snap, it's crackle, what a happy sound. You gotta have crackle or the clock's not bound. You can't stop hopping when the cereal's popping. Snap, crackle, pop makes the world go round.